All right, everyone, welcome back from the episode of Carnivore Trade. Today is Tuesday, May 31st, 2022. If you're not done so already, you like the content, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, etc. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, a quiet day on Wall Street. We call this holiday hangover. Basically a pause day here in the market. And you can see here, if we look on the daily, really just, you have a 3-bar surge here. Very common for the markets to take a breather anyway. After such a big up move like that. You see the same thing here on the triple Qs as well. So this is very common. Now, a couple of things to note here. So as I mentioned yesterday, last night, if you caught the video, the crypto update, I talked a little bit about the NASDAQ and the spiders as well. But the NQ is outperforming, and it has been here. So the triple Qs are up just under 25 basis points currently. We have the spiders here are basically flat. They're down 25 basis points. The diamond here is down 30, and the Russell is down 1.35 currently. Overall, just basically a pause day across the board. But the fact that the NASDAQ is leading is not a bearish indicator. So, we're going to go with that, and as long as that maintains continues to be the case. Generally we kind of give the market a little bit more upside bias here. So when I see tech leading and I see kind of energy starting to sell off after good news this morning, it's generally a good sign. Now, the second thing here is, especially this morning, the VIX was very elevated. The markets opened flat, right? So here's the spiders. Actually, let's flip over to the intraday here. Spiders basically opened flat to negative, Qs opened flat. And the VIX, gapped up pretty significantly and got all the way above, all the way to 28.35. We're coming way off the highs here. And now, as you can see, even on the hourly, it's kind of bear flagging a little bit and pushing lower here as we enter the 3:30 time frame. If the VIX, and I tweeted this out earlier, I said, look, if the VIX is elevated right now in the markets, there's not really a lot of market participants. Remember, never short a dull market. If the VIX starts coming in off the highs, it's really going to cause upward pressure on the market. And if you break this kind of trend line here, I think the market's squeezed a little bit higher. So I think what happened is a lot of retail investors tried to short this open today and via puts, and that's what caused the VIX to spike. They were buying puts here, and they just basically got theta burned. So you just chopping sideways. Light volume float higher is going to burn the heck out of theta. And I think they just started to realize, oh, wait a second, this isn't going to work here. And those puts are going to get closed. It's going to cause downward pressure on the VIX, which gives us fuel for another move up here, honestly. Which brings me into my next kind of segment here, or point rather. I tweeted this out as well, but this is like one of the laziest things I've ever seen if they actually let this play out. But kind of like the thumbnail says, take a look at this pattern here. So, we talked about this. I talked about this a few weeks ago. I said, we came up here, we had the leg down, we came up here, they sold the rip, they sold the rip again, they sold it the third time, the fourth time it failed. What do we have here? We came down, sell the rip 1, sell the rip 2, sell the rip 3. What happens the fourth time? It fails, right? You can't even make this up. So here's our 3-bar surge after the rip fails. And by the way, you can see a little bit better on the triple Qs. I'm going to put it on the triple Qs here because you see this falling wedge pattern. Okay, falling wedge, sell the rip, sell the rip, sell the rip, failed. And then what happens after this? We get the 1, 2, 3 up, and then an inside doji day. Well, what do we have here? A falling wedge, sell the rip, sell the rip, sell the rip, failure. 1, 2, 3 up, inside doji. Looks like maybe we close green, maybe we don't, maybe we close a little bit off the highs, but the point is this is the same exact pattern. So somebody's got the algos just programmed to do the same exact thing on the way down and possibly on the way up. So it will be very interesting to see, do we surge tomorrow? So if we look at the spiders here, the spiders actually gapped up a little bit on the 22nd. Qs open flattish, and either way they surged. We said we had a surge the day after this little hammer, right? And then we had a little backing and filling day, and then we had one more little power up. you almost think it's too obvious, but you know, until they prove it otherwise, they've done the same exact thing over and over. You know, I gotta think that it's going to happen again. And for the other 2 points I just made, VIX being elevated, when that comes down, it's going to cause upward pressure on the markets, puts being closed, and the Nasdaq still leading. As long as the Nasdaq's leading, we got no reason to think that this market can't continue to rally. So that's kind of the thesis right here. You know, and there's nothing to say maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe we just flag. You know, maybe we flag instead. And you know, again, you guys know I kind of have an upside bias here for the next 2 weeks or so. So I'm thinking we can have one more little leg up here. But you know, I just think it's amusing and incredibly lazy if that is the case, and it does end up playing out. It'll be very, very interesting indeed. But in any case, let's move on here to the Russell. So we talked a little bit about that, but again, you know, 1, 2, 3 up, little inside pause day, nothing wrong with that. You're coming into resistance. You know, again, if this flags or goes sideways, nothing to say it can't go up and attack this pivot high here. You know, the more it flags up, the more minor this 50 MA will become, but you will have a ton of resistance, stiff resistance at 195 and change on the Russell. Diamond here, again, you know, a nice surge off the lows. That 331 handle has been very good, a very good pivot point here. Going back to this gap, basically kissed it there, pivot, broke down, chopped around it, consolidated a little bit, kind of became a little bit of a pivot there. Then you finally broke down, and now it's kind of back testing again. So again, same kind of pattern across the board coming into that red bar. So no surprise that we had a stall out, but in any case, markets are holding up here. Semis, same pattern here, a little bit of a micro falling wedge, a little bit of an inverse head and shoulders as well on the semis potentially. It's a little steep, it's a little bit steeper than I like it, but in any case, you have a nice trend line break, a nice surge on Friday, and an inside day today. So hammer candle, nothing wrong when I see that. I would give this the upside bias to that 260 area if we can get some, if we can get another lift in the market here. IGV, same kind of deal. You know, ABC up. Now it's consolidating inside hammer, and you know, maybe that 300 area, maybe 300 and change. That's where I would think that it wants to go here, but it's going to have a lot of resistance up in that area. That was a major support area. You consolidated and then broke down, so that's going to be tough resistance. But I still give it the upside bias in the short term. Same thing with the Dow Transports. So Dow Transport's the last time we had this squeeze. This was kind of the price action here and really took off. You had that big power surge on the 16th, and then we had that flag that tried to break out and it failed. So it'll be interesting to see, do we have another surge coming, and then does it flag, you know, over the next couple of weeks and fail? So that would be kind of your repeat pattern. You know, if the spiders are going to repeat this same pattern, the Qs are going to repeat the same pattern, we'll watch the Dow Transports for clues there as well. Anyways, let's go over to rates here. So rates getting a bid this morning. They jumped this morning on the EU putting some more sanctions on oil, Russian oil exports and imports and so on. Oil did come off the highs though, after there was some talk with OPEC. I believe I'm not sure the exact details, but it did have to do with them being able to increase supply a little bit, so oil took a hit. But in any case, even before that happened, rates pulled back way off the highs. You can see on the intraday here, pulling back off the highs this morning. That news didn't come out till later today. But again, getting rejected possibly at that 20 MA. So we'll see if rates start to chop in this area. That's going to be the setup for that pullback to 2.5 like we talked about. 30 years a little bit stronger, we know that. But again, essentially the same pattern, all things considered. And HYG, pulling back here, holding that 50 MA, but again, is anybody really surprised after the surge, basically sub 76 to above 80 in really like a 1 week, week and a half? So no surprise that it needs to pull back a little bit. JNK, same thing, and LQD also pulling back, which is a little bit more of a positive correlation to a TLT here. But TLT, again, you know, came off the lows nicely, just like rates did, or coming off the highs rather. Anyways, home builders here. XHB pullback, hammer candle, same thing as pretty much everything else. ITB, VNQ as well. So an inside day there. Again, if it can consolidate, then maybe it can go up and attack that 102 area. But again, lots of resistance up here. Look at these moving averages trending lower, coinciding with this big, you know, this big breakdown area. And look at all this chop here. It took a lot of energy for you to break through that. So it's going to be a lot of resistance on the upside if it gets tested. But VNQ holding up for today, and we'll leave it at that. XLF. So again, this is something else I noticed. So Notice how XLF bottomed on the 8th of March. And then we came down here and, well, I guess if we flip over to this correlate, I guess, so XLF didn't dump as much as the spiders. And then it kind of bottomed on the same day after that gap down. But XLF, kind of the same kind of deal here. So it put in that bottom, then gapped up in higher lows. So really doing the same thing here. So I put in that tail right here, and then it never really retested it. So same pattern there on XLF that we had. And then you have this day right here was your hammer candle that coincides with the SPY hammer candle, which is the day that we're looking at right here. And XLF actually finished green that day. And XLF is green currently. So again, the same exact pattern is showing up on all these sectors here. XLF having a strong day, it's outperforming. And you know, when I see financials holding up, that's another thing. When I see financials and the NASDAQ outperforming, that's usually a good sign. You want to see those two sectors lead, and we're seeing that currently. Broker dealers, again, inside hammer candle. So, you know, maybe we can, you know, get above this pivot high if we can flag up a little bit, or, you know, if we can pause for one day, we can get another surge, you know, if we get a short squeeze. So that is possible. Don't see any problems there in fins. JPM having a nice day up 1.3, and Bank of America up over 1% as well. So those are leading the charge there. So we talked about crude a little bit. What's the area I've been telling you guys for like 2 months now? 120. So that's the area that it's going to go up to if we were to break out of this range, which we did. We got up there. I said, you know, if we break through this pivot, I give it the upside bias to 120. We got up to high of the day 119.98. So pulling back pretty sharply off the highs with heavy volume too. So the one thing that I want to point out here, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Actually, let's just talk about it now. We'll flip over to the dollar. I know I usually cover a few other things, but look at the dollar. You know, look at rates. Let's look at crude. Look at XLE. Do you notice anything about any of these plays? They all gapped up today, or they all surged in the morning, and now they've all come off the highs. These are all inflation plays. And they are, you know, they gapped up and they came off of the highs pretty sharply. XLE, take a look at Chevron here. That's an engulfing reversal on Chevron. Exxon, very close to an engulfing reversal. OIH, basically an engulfing reversal there, maybe off by a couple pennies. XLP, that's a dark cloud cover. XLE, same exact thing. With, you know, pretty decent volume picking up here a little bit. Nothing crazy, but it's getting up there. So you can make a case there's some distribution potentially going on here. And you know, I said this earlier, I know the fundamentals for oil and all that stuff, but can you find one person who's bearish energy? You know, generally when I see that, you know, like I've been saying about the markets, I've been calling for this short squeeze because there's so many people loaded to one side of the boat. When I see everybody calling for XLE to go to the moon, it generally concerns me a little bit here. And I was just telling members, we had really bullish news this morning with the EU putting those extra sanctions on Russian oil. If that's the case and we gapped up to a 52-week high on XLE and we couldn't hold those gains, that's a really negative sign. Whenever you have really positive news and you can't hold the gains, that's almost always a very bearish indicator. But again, you know, crude is still holding up. Let's not like make any bones about it. XLE is still very, you know, it's basically at 52-week highs, but it came well off the highs here today. We've got engulfing reversals on a lot of those stocks. So we'll see what we get this week. Again, one day doesn't make a trend, but I just want to raise that to everyone's attention. Also, nat gas coming way off the highs as well, taking out Friday's low. So down over 6% right now. It's currently holding that 20-day moving average, which is a minor moving average at this point. You know, if it's been hit so many times, you're parallel. But if it does break, you know, you probably headed down to that $7 handle. So we'll be watching that very closely, but just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention about all those inflation plays starting to wane a little bit. Maybe we're starting to run out of momentum here as the economy contracts a little bit. Anyways, so we talked about the dollar briefly, bounced off that 50 MA. If this starts to flag up, you guys know the story. I'm looking for 100 to possibly 99 there in the dollar index in the medium term. Gold here continues to flag up. It is, you know, getting hit. You can see the GLD making lower lows here intraday. pretty good volume there on that pullback. It's still holding this candle. As long as it stays up right here and stays at kind of a 90-degree angle, I have no problem with it. And I'll be watching this for a potential long setup. I like what it's doing. I've got no issues with it, but I don't think, I think it's a little bit of an immature pattern at this point, but it does have me interested. Silver, on the other hand, much, much weaker. So after that little test candle here on Friday, came off the highs and now continuing lower with good volume. So we'll see what we get out here, but I don't like what I'm seeing from silver currently. GDX pulling off the highs as well. Nothing terrible. We'll have to see what it does tomorrow. And SILJ actually having a decent day as it's kind of holding this these kind of low pivots right now. So again, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow if we can get a little bit more information on it. But these patterns can firm up and mature, but again, we'll have to see a little bit more. Platinum having a nice day though. Keep an eye on this trend line right here. That's kind of what I'm watching right now. Outside of that, nothing too major. And then palladium, again, having trouble with this trend line here, so that may be headed lower if it can't get back above that. And then copper also pulling off the highs, but again, nothing terrible. I still like this if it flags up a little bit to that $4.50 to $5 area. All right, so crypto here. So flipping over to Ether. Again, pulling off that 20, you got to close above it. I like that you close above the red bar high. Now a little bit of a pause candle, nothing terrible. I don't have any problems with this pattern. Bitcoin, nice little doji inside after a big surge, and you closed above this pivot. Still got to get above this pivot high, and if once you do, that will clear you up to about 36,000. So somewhere in that area, and then I think max upside would be like 38. Maybe if we really take off 42, and back testing this trend line, but I think that's a little ambitious here, at least for right now. But overall, I don't have any problems here. And I told you guys last night, I like the surge. I like that it finally came off the lows. And a lot of the time, when you have these big tail candles, sometimes it gets retested, and it traps a lot of retail says, oh, it's going to show, it's going to break down, it's going to go, and then they get squeezed to the upside. So I think that's what happened right here. And right now, I don't see any problems with Bitcoin in the near term. And I think that if it flags up a little bit, it can rally. Maybe it rallies tomorrow if we get that same kind of correlation that we've had in the spiders, moving forward to tomorrow. Anyways, flip back over here to the SPY. So yeah, fading a little bit off the highs on the daily. Oh, actually, no, sorry. We're actually up here a little bit. Got to get my eyes checked. Anyways, market's basically just kind of floating here into the close. Qs are higher, so up almost 0.5% right now. It's 3:40 p.m., so we got 20 minutes left. They could fade us a little bit off the highs. Either way, I don't see any problems here with the market. I would prefer the Qs actually back off a little bit, honestly, and close kind of flattish. But in any case, if they're still leading, and if XLF is still leading, I'm seeing JP Morgan bid on my screen right now up 1.3. XLF is up nicely, so if fins in the Russell or fins in NASDAQ continue to lead, I don't see any problems out there. You see in the VIX start to die off right now as well. UVXY on my screen there, bidding lower, and watch that little inside bar there. We may flush out here tomorrow. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.